Dan Koe makes over $5,700 a day from YouTube, all from posting one simple video a week. And I'm going to reveal 3 different parts of his strategy. 1, how he creates all of his content in just a few hours a week. 2, his simple system for getting views on YouTube. And 3, his counterintuitive method for turning those viewers into customers. And this will totally change how you build your business with YouTube. Dan manages to create content and work on his business in only 4 hours a day. He uses a very clever system to create his content in the fastest time possible. And this is something so simple that anyone can use it. See, Dan starts by writing 1 newsletter a week. Then he records this newsletter as a YouTube video. He literally just reads it line by line like this.
Traditional education and hyper-specialization is a way to make people subservient to the dominant paradigm or system.
Next, he takes the audio recording from the YouTube video and converts that into a podcast. And finally, he takes the main ideas from the newsletter and turns those into his short form content. 1 single newsletter powers his entire content machine for the week. If you don't want to waste hours making content every single week, you need to make sure you have a simple system set up to speed everything up. But Dan makes content in highly competitive niches on YouTube. For most creators, it would be very difficult to get any views, which is why Dan uses a very clever strategy for making his competition obsolete. Take a look at this recent video. There are already dozens, if not hundreds of videos on that same topic, but Dan is doing something very clever. It might look like he's competing directly with these other creators, but in fact, Dan has created a category of 1. Most creators focus just on teaching. However, Dan, he does things differently.
The first is the societal machine. The clear path of going to school, getting a job, and retiring happily is very enticing. So most people relinquish their freedom to choose and their free agency, their autonomy, and end up just doing what they're told.
But his content heavily features his worldviews and beliefs. And this is what separates him from the other creators. Nobody else can copy them and become Dan. By giving his unique perspectives and insights, he can stand out even in a crowded marketplace. But even with a unique worldview, Dan still needs people to click on his videos. And if he messed this up, he would be lucky to be making $5 a day, let alone 5,000. When you browse through YouTube, you'll see dozens of videos, and the only information you have about that video is the title and the thumbnail. Dan's strategy for making his videos stand out is very simple. If you look at Dan's thumbnails, they are incredibly basic. It's just his face and then some text. He found a format that works and then he uses it again and again and again. And even if you're rubbish at editing photos, you could make thumbnails like this in just a few minutes. For the quote, he chooses a phrase that is evocative, often contrarian, or it inspires urgency. Next is the video title. And you might think he's some sort of clever genius coming up with some of these, but actually that's not the case. And this strategy is so boringly simple that anyone can copy it. Instead of guessing what works, he steals like an artist. For example, this video was based on this video. He looks for videos that have performed well on YouTube, copies their winning titles, and adapts them to his own channel. No matter what type of content you make, you can use this strategy. On my own channel, I based this video on this video. Don't just write titles and hope they work. Use data and model what works for other people. But if you want to start creating YouTube videos to blow up your business, then you can sign up for my free email course down below in the video description. It's 30 ways in 30 days to land more clients from YouTube. But turning viewers into buyers is one of the hardest parts of YouTube. Dan has 3 very sneaky techniques for converting those viewers into buyers. Dan knows that he has to hook people into his videos. He needs to make them so addicted that they can't help but watch all the way through to the end. And to do this, he uses the same strategy in every single video. His videos start with the pain point speaking directly to his viewer.
Focusing on one thing is just the bane of your existence. You can't do it. You have multiple interests. You can't help yourself. You want to explore the full range of the human experience. You want to acquire as much knowledge as you can. But people in society, maybe not directly, have convinced you that this isn't going to lead to anything great in your life. And I'm here to tell you that that is a complete lie.
This makes the viewer feel like Dan understands them, that he knows their struggles and that he can relate to them. And then next, he gives them some insight into this pain point, giving the viewer an aha moment.
This Prussian education system was designed to create obedient soldiers, compliant citizens, civil servants, and well-behaved workers. The thing here is that students were taught how to work, not how to think.
This makes the viewer feel like Dan can fix their pains, that he has some sort of unique solution. And then finally, he moves into the action phase. He gives people the actual step-by-step to fixing their problems. This is where the real magic happens, because Dan cleverly pictures his products as the solution. One of his products is called Cortex, which is an AI-powered second brain that helps people manage their lives. And rather than just telling people how to fix their problems, he shows them how to fix them whilst also using his software.
So we're going to do something very fun here. To create an aim for your future, we're just going to map this out. You don't have to do this inside of Cortex, but there is a template available for you to download to fill these things out.
This video is essentially a 30-minute sales pitch for his software, and in only 2 weeks it has 191,000 views. Can you imagine getting 191,000 views on a sales pitch for free? It's just crazy. And this video wasn't a hard sell by any means. He still gives the how-to, but he just gently shows how it's easier to achieve the result by using his software. And this gently pulls viewers closer to becoming a customer. But the content structure is not the only trick up his sleeve. There is something very simple going on that most people overlook. See, Google did a study and they found that if people spend 7 hours watching your content across 11 different touch points on 4 platforms, they are highly likely to become a customer. And if you look at all of Dan's videos, they're at least half an hour long. He can reach that magical 7 hours of content very, very quickly. If he posted one 60-second reel a day and you watched every single one, it would take over a year for you to reach that magical 7 hours. But with YouTube, you could binge his content and reach that 7-hour benchmark in just a few days. So by making very long videos, he can turn someone from a viewer into a customer very, very fast. But there is one more key element to his sales strategy, and I think it's the biggest reason why he makes so much money. Now, I mentioned before that Dan shares his worldviews and his beliefs in his videos, but let's look at one of his products, the One-Person Business Launchpad. It's designed to help people start their first business. To buy this product, someone would need to believe that they could become an entrepreneur. So let's see what Dan talks about in his content.
And what ties this all together is that anyone can be an entrepreneur. Because when the novelty and challenge of schooling and job advancement come to a halt in your mid-20s, causing a lack of meaning and purpose, entrepreneurship is how you continue to develop yourself and control your future.
This is a bit more of an over example because he shares his belief that anyone can become an entrepreneur. And if you watch enough of Dan's content, you would start to share his beliefs. And if you believed that anyone could become an entrepreneur, then buying his One-Person Business Launchpad would make sense. Dan isn't just finding customers, He is creating customers by putting beliefs into the viewer's mind. But if you want to learn how another entrepreneur made $1 million in a month on YouTube, then watch this video next.